All right. Good to go.
Welcome everybody to our budget workshop. It is 4/26/23, Wednesday. I'll hand it over to Mark, our Selectmen.
Thank you, Bo. I'll be right with you.
Yep.
So this is our next to last glance at the budget. Next week will be the final presentation to the Board of Selectmen, along with a select board meeting to this final presentation to the select board and the public. This week, I would suggest that we try to pretty much get where we feel comfortable with our side. I'm not sure if the school, do you anticipate that the school is going to, are you meeting with the school tomorrow?
The school board had a meeting last night and Ann said that she will email me any changes that they have from that. So I didn't receive it today, but I was going to follow up with her this week to see if she can get that information to me. So if there are changes, I can put them in.
Did you get the feeling that, did you get a sense of any anticipated changes up or down?
The only change that I know of is that based on the numbers that were budgeted for the bookkeeper position last year and what they are this year, that line item could be going down by a couple $1,000s, but that's for them to decide if they want to bring that item down. And then they were in support of doing the 5% COLA, but I'm not sure what the decision was from that meeting. I did not hear back from Ann today.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Can I just ask some general questions?
Go right ahead.
So on page 41,
Yep.
which is the bottom of the revenue section, I'm just not clear. I just don't quite understand. So the numbers at the very bottom, you know, 3.3 million, 3.6 million, 3.5 million, and then it's 119,650. I guess what I don't see, or if you go even to the last page, page 42, I guess what I'm trying to get a handle on, I'm assuming that, you know, the budget for 2023, which says 3.7 million. That was is that the full budget for last year?
Are you looking, what page are you looking at?
Page 42. I guess it says revenue totals, and I didn't understand that. I just don't understand what that is.
So if you look at page 40, page 40 through 42, that's where the revenue comes in, and page 42, the last page, it will show that number with the expense and revenue together.
So,
So for 2023, that $3.7 million is the budget.
so what is it for 2024?
So for 2024, as it stands right now, the initial expense budget is 3.86. The reason that you're not seeing on page 41 at the very bottom under 2024 initial, and it only says 119, is because on page 40, if you see where it says 1,300 and then it says 326 tax commitment.
Page 40? I
Yeah.
guess I don't. So 1,300?
Yeah.
Department
So
1300, line item.
Oh,
line
yeah.
item 326. See how it says tax commitment and it
Yeah.
has large number?
Yeah.
So I have not received like the education aid revenue that's anticipated from the schools, so I haven't put that in under revenue. And From the way I was taught by Marjorie, you predict and anticipate what you're gonna receive for revenue, and then you take what the total expenses,
Right.
subtract the revenue, and then you put the difference under that tax commitment, and that's the anticipated amount that you wanna raise by taxes.
Right, and so that was the number, because I think that, and, you know, basically that's what the rubber meets the road, that's the tax rate for the community. So when will you have a tax commitment estimate?
So I'm hoping that I could have that for your last, that final, what is it, next week? Is that next week?
So is that something Jackie provides?
Next week.
So, no, Jackie doesn't provide, it's just, like I said, once all of the anticipated revenue comes in, we take the difference, and put it in there. There is a formula that I can plug in into Excel that can give me a rough number about what it would be, but,
Well, I guess I ran into Jackie on the boat and she said she could get us that number, so I guess I thought it was coming from her.
she asked me to give her some numbers, and she asked me if I, because she can figure that number out by having the education aid, homestead, not homestead exemption. There is certain things that she needs to be able to subtract to get that number, and we don't have that information. Like with the education aid is one of them, you don't put that in. So when she figures out the tax rate, education aid, homestead, and there's a couple other things that don't go into the calculation of it, and
Right, but in order to sort of understand what impact we're having on the community, we'd want to know what our net amount we have to raise by taxes, and we've certainly done that in the past. We've estimated it. So I did, when I ran into Jackie, I explained to her that we would like to do that again. And she said, okay, I'll get you the numbers. So I guess if that's a goal where we want to be able to say the mill rate is, what is the mill rate right now?
$12.50.
So if we want to estimate, I recognize it's not a definite, but I think it would be worthwhile to estimate after we, you know, solidify the budget, what the impact is on the mill rate. Because, you know, it's a balance of the assessment, tax revenues, and then the expenses. And so I think that's the number. I would like to go back to doing that because I think the community deserves some, you know, a lot of communities do that, and I think we used to do it, and I think we should do it again. And it's an estimate, but it's still better than just coming in with a number and saying the budget's up 5% or something.
Right.
It's more meaningful to the homeowner, and then you can sort of figure out what does it mean for them personally.
So Vika, on page 39, on the capital improvements page, the expense total is on the bottom of that.
yes, so
The 2023, 3.7 million,
8.
yeah, and proposed is 3.86. Last year was 3.83. Are those numbers accurate?
So, this includes everything that you've decided to date and, the current budget that I had from the school.
So it's not minus any revenues, it's just the total expenditures.
Correct.
And you've got this up 3.27%.
That's what it is.
And there will be more
But-
after.
But anticipated revenues are not yet calculated in.
Correct.
Yeah, we didn't have enough, we didn't have all of the numbers. So for the pages 39 through 41, where you say any numbers under revenue, this is where, Marjorie had taught me to go through. So there are certain things like state revenue sharing, that's a number that the state gives you, we know how much we're gonna get. With a lot of other ones, they're just predictions based on
Right.
what the expectations are or what the trajectory has been. Education aid is a number that's provided by the state. And so education aid is really the big one that we need, that I haven't had yet, to then subtract that and, two other things, I think it's two other things, and then that will give us kind of the anticipated tax rate, and then we can figure out the mill rate.
So it's not accurate to say right now, this proposed initial budget for 2024 is up $120,000,
So,
Not the net.
not the net, that's my
The
question.
gross is, but not necessarily.
gross
the net, Right, I don't think we know what the net difference is. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, right, and so,
That's what matters.
and so your point, Carol, is that we need the estimate and the information from our assessor. to help
Well,
us.
what Jackie told me, and maybe I misunderstood her, because, but this is how it was done in the past, is the assessor came up with the line 326, the tax commitment for, it's an estimate for
Yeah.
2024. That's the big number, because frankly, the school revenue sharing is a pretty small number comparatively. But that's the big number, and then it's like the homes, and also we have that new tax program where people can fix their taxes, but then the state gets reimburses the town supposedly, so there
Right.
must be some other and I think on the revenue side, if we don't know anything else, we just estimate what we had the previous year, kind of be conservative, so we don't overestimate our revenues, right? That would be the strategy.
And then she and the town administrator present us with that
It's a
tax
one-page
calculation
tax.
sheet.
The tax, have you done that yourself? Yeah,
I did, yeah, I have it from last year.
yeah.
Go
But
ahead, sorry.
I'm used to profit and loss statements. So I'm confused by the fact that on our bottom line page,
What
the
page?
last page of the report. Sounds correct now, and what I just heard is that we add the anticipated revenues to the anticipated expenses.
Well, we subtract the anticipated expenses from the anticipated revenues and come up with a net. Right? In other words, what's missing, the big number that's missing is line 326 on page 40, which is the tax commitment. And that's based on the mill, that's based on our overall assessment and
That's
what.
not at all what I'm saying. At our last meeting, I thought we made the statement that our expenses so far for what we had budgeted were 100,000 net. Now what I'm hearing is that our expenses are 122,000 up. So what did I miss at our last meeting?
3.7% increase right now.
Okay, but didn't we say at our last meeting that where we were right then, we
Yes.
were 100,000 less in the expense budget for next year compared to the expense budget for this year?
Was that with the school?
For
I don't
some
know.
reason, I think it was
That
without
was
the
before the
school.
is budgeted.
Right.
So the
I
school,
think the 122, we got most of that from the school.
so the school number is up about $97,000.
If the school's up 97,000 bucks and we were down 100,000 at our last meeting, then we should be down 3,000 today, not up 122,000.
I know, I asked that same question, Bob, and,
Yep.
and I think it goes back to the fact that we're not being supplied with the net.
No, it
Outcome.
doesn't. This is just expenses.
I
The
know,
revenues come later.
but the net would come from tax revenue and all the other town revenues that we bring in besides
I
tax commitment.
understand what Bob's saying.
I'm saying, forget about
Numbers.
revenue,
Right.
but just assume revenue is flat. I
Yeah.
thought what we were saying at our last meeting was that our expenses that we were currently budgeting, including additions to capital, I thought we were saying that we were 100,000 under last year's budget.
You're correct. So on 3/2/23, not counting the school. Last year's budget was 3.7. This year's budget was estimated at 3.5, down 4.6%.
Okay.
So that was
How did we get-
3/2/23.
And if the school budget is adding 97,000, was that number 100,000 down the numbers you just read from 3.2.
Yeah, I mean, it's
give or take.
give or take, but I think we've also, subsequent to that budget, we've added we've bumped up some other aspects of the budget. So that when we made that statement back in early March, we
That
had,
wasn't our last meeting, okay.
I don't think it was the last meeting.
Yeah, we've bumped up the code enforcement area.
And capital.
We've bumped up some stuff in capital,
Okay.
and we quickly lost our gain.
The harbor master position
Yeah,
was
yeah,
changed.
okay.
That added back in some.
So now expenses are up for the proposed 2024, including the school as it stands right now,
Right.
compared to last year. We're up by 122, but we don't yet know whether the change in last year's budgeted revenue versus the change in this year's budgeted revenue helps us or hurts us.
Most likely helps us.
It most likely helps us because I know we doubled mooring fees. That was a pretty big number. But it's probably not gonna help us by $122,000.
The key is really the estimated tax commitment.
Well, that's not on controlling expenses. I'm balancing the budget. I get what you're saying. Yes, but on just flat out controlling expenses, we're up by 122,000,
Yeah.
3%, yeah.
So far. And this one here represents the school and the town. And the 3.27% is everything.
Correct.
And the school that's in here, we think is final, subject to any changes that they talked about at this most recent meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
And I went
Thank
through and I made any discrepancies between what they had and what was on Trio. I went in and made those corrections in here. So this is as accurate as anything I could present you with today.
Yeah, so I just quickly glanced at the school, and roughly their budget from last year is up $97,183. We're up about $12,126. So those are just rough numbers to start this discussion tonight.
Yeah.
I believe, based on information that we've received, that we should be prepared to add into our capital reserve dredging account 9010. I believe we should be prepared to add up to $60,000 to that line item.
Additional.
Additional.
80, right?
I'm just starting the conversation there. Is that okay to start the conversation there?
Good idea.
Okay. Given that, and given that we're already up, I have a few suggestions, if I may. Can I start the discussion? Is that okay with you guys? I'm going to select some capital items and give you a rationale. I think we could easily, right now, in line item 9015, Stone Wharf, we have proposed
What page do you want?
I'm sorry, I'm page 39. I hope it's the same as yours.
Yeah.
Page 39, Capital Improvement Department, 9,000, under 9015 Stone Wharf, we're proposing 110,000. I think we could easily knock that down to $100,000 without sacrificing anything, and save 10,000 right there. Does anybody have a comment or disagree with that? Or could we get three of us to either disagree or agree with my comment?
Do we have a plan? Was there a reason why we put 110 in there?
I think we're trying to build up that reserve for a possibility of helping out with some of the future design and engineering costs, and possibly even the Stone Wharf Road, but I don't know that specifically. But I think we're trying to build that up, and I'm sorry, I didn't read you the existing balance, which I will right now. In our Machias savings account right now, we have $258,835. So
you're saying drop it from 110 to 90? Is that what you're
No,
suggesting?
110 to 100.
110 to
I'm
90.
just suggesting 10,000 to start the
I
conversation.
suggest 80, bring it down to 80.
You suggest bringing down to 80? Okay,
Mm,
what do you guys think?
We don't have a plan. We have ideas of a plan, but we don't currently have a plan.
Go right ahead, Jim.
I'd like to keep it at 100,000. I think it's up there on the tippy
Okay,
top of the list.
Bob and Carol, do you have a,
I agree with Jen.
okay,
I'm good with that.
the public can chime in anytime you'd like. If you raise your hand, you're welcome. Okay, yeah. That's my first suggestion.
So you guys are all agreed with changing that?
It
to
passed.
100?
I think we, and Vika, obviously, let me know if you have a comment on any of this stuff, please. Guide ramps, I didn't dare to touch because I'm afraid we might have to either look at one down at Bennett's or look at rebuilding one at Stone Wharf, but I don't know that. Right now in barge ramps, we have $10,438. We are proposing 20,000. I don't know if we should knock that down or leave it.
I don't wanna touch that one.
Okay. Floats and ramps. I talked with Justin Dowdy today. He has been in touch with Custom Floats. We being town and coastal water, do not have a plan at the moment, but so right now we have $27,867. We were proposing 15,000. I'm suggesting knocking that down to $5,000, and that would give us a balance of about $32,000, which in talking to Justin, the committee and the owner of Custom Floats would still purchase us a couple of floats if we decided to.
Yep.
What do you think of
Take
that?
it down to 5.
That's my suggestion. Does anybody have a problem with it? Or do we have 3 people that agree with it, or?
I'm fine with it. I think somebody mentioned that when we discussed it at the time, like, why
Yeah.
were we putting that much in? So I think that's fine, personally.
Jen and Bo, you're good?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. My next, cut me off if you want me to stop. The fire department reserve, we have proposed 80,000 in there. I know that up to, correct me with these numbers, because I think Ralph is expecting to spend at least 50,000 on radio service upgrade.
No.
40.
So that is that would be a combined cost with Long Island.
Okay,
The,
it was 40 something. Wasn't it 40 something?
Yeah, I thought it was 40,000.
Yeah. So here's my, you don't need to look that up. Here's my quick, I'm just suggesting we take that from 80 to 70,000. It's only $10,000. I'm sure Ralph would cringe at that. I did not talk to Ralph today, just to be honest and upfront with everyone. But that still leaves 70,000 in there, which in my opinion would do his radio upgrade and still leave, I'm gonna say 20,000 plus towards a new fire department truck. Does that make sense to anyone? Go ahead, Jen.
So in the Machias, under fire trucks, there's 75 in there.
Right.
And that's the only, you don't really count fire fund, but that's the only reserve account for the fire department, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's specifically for building up towards a, according to Ralph, at least a $300,000 piece of machinery at some point. And I forget which year the target was. Do you recall the year?
27?
What was it?
I know it was like
It's on-
26 or
it's on
27.
a,
Yeah,
6-year plan, which now has turned into a 7-year plan, because 1 year
yeah.
money was not put in.
So unfortunately, we may have to get a little more aggressive with that or talk about another goal for purchasing or bonding or something like that.
Or grants.
But the radio plan interrupted some of that this year,
Right,
so.
so they're using that fund
Yeah.
for the radio.
So I'm just proposing knocking that down by 10,000. I don't want to rest anything.
I'm hesitant to do that because I thought that he had come back with the need for something additional with the radio upgrade. but
There was a
Batteries,
inspection
something.
inspect,
I've
I
got it
thought it was
somewhere.
inspection.
Yeah, it's-
It got
Okay.
skipped for a couple of years during COVID.
So we'll hold on to that 80,000 for now while Jen looks.
Okay.
Okay? So okay if I move on for a second, Jen, while you? Building facilities is the next one. What do we got in there? Building facilities has $25,887 currently. We're proposing another 20,000. I guess, do we leave that alone?
Yes, yeah,
Leave it alone?
yeah, it's not a lot of money.
Okay. New town office, leave that alone too?
Yeah, again, not a lot of money.
Okay. Can't really touch. I don't think it's a good idea to do away with the land acquisition. What's the goal on that one? What's the goal in the land acquisition account, which is 9035 and has a balance of
Discuss with select.
12?
So I think that could be anything that comes up. There's not much in that account, right?
$12,913.
The idea is that when things come up, it could be conservation or parklands. Best example I could think of would be the upper part of the Putnam land when that came up.
Okay,
To have an account in there where we can buy things that we think the town ought to without having to have a special town meeting.
And
Yeah.
was it last year, the populist? Either last year or the year before, John Ash made the motion. We didn't have it in the budget and he added it.
It was
So I
last,
think
last town meeting,
Okay.
$10,000 was added.
So I think we should keep it.
so you want to leave that one alone?
Yes,
Solar array, we can't really do
Right,
much with that because we've
keep that.
lowered it from
right.
17.5 to 15, and we're hoping to buy that out for
Yeah.
whatever it is, 87,000 or something like that. We probably can't touch that one. The broadband reserve doesn't have anything proposed, correct?
Great.
Correct.
Vehicle reserve is $5,000. Do you have a plan for vehicle reserve?
So there's currently a little over 8 in there, and my understanding, and that's kind of something that I move forward with is, there was talk of when Justin, prior to me, was looking at electrical vehicles, and I think there was money started to be set aside, so if and when a town needs a town vehicle, that there's money available for a purchase versus having to borrow.
Okay, we have 8,300 in there, so are we leaving that one alone for now?
I would.
We're putting in 5 this year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Grant matching funds probably isn't a great place to,
we're gonna wipe out the balance with this current grant.
Yes.
So, right, we're gonna wipe out 25,000 or
Correct.
something, so we need to put something in there. 20 would be the minimum.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Reevaluation reserve, we're not proposing to put anything in there. We're planning for a reevaluation and we have, I can't find it,
75.
75,000?
I think so.
And I forget what the cost of that was proposed to be.
That was the
Um,
intent, to raise that much money and try to do the reval this year.
For about that, about
For
75
about
or 80.
that much, and at the beginning of the year, I sat down and talked to Jackie and asked her if we should hold off a little bit, and her professional recommendation that with the prices now, keep the money there, give it a year, and then revisit it next year.
Okay. Leave that one alone. Next one is paving. I'm suggesting bring this down to 50,000.
Yeah.
So next year, probably we will take a hard look at whether we want to do that chip seal project for about 130,000. We have about 37,000 in there. If we put 50 in there, we'll have 85 or 87,000, and then we'll have to just budget the balance, which will be $45,000 or $50,000. So I'm saying knock that down to 50.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I think you'd be, go ahead, more aggressive with it. go down to 25 with it. I hate
Okay.
kicking the can, I hate
What did
kicking
I
the
do?
can, but
That's okay. What did I just say? We would have to budget next year, 50?
yeah,
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
yes.
Okay, so if we went with your scenario, we'd have to budget 75 or 80. Just so you know, if we want to do the project, doesn't matter.
But we wouldn't have the dredging next year,
Okay, so what's your number?
25.
Okay?
Yeah.
Bob,
Okay, like, it.
so we're going to 25,000 on paving, 90/50? Public works equipment, we're all
Yeah,
set on that one, because we're
right.
gonna purchase that tractor, which should help us long-term for multiple functioning and budgeting.
Yeah.
Recycling compactors, we've only got $1,000 in there. I would leave it. It's really not worth discussing unless anybody disagrees. Easements and drainage, we don't have anything in there. We have a pretty good hefty balance. We have a balance of about 82,000.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Coastal access,
Coastal Access Fund, 90/70.
we don't have a ton.
So we have, what do we have in there?
Because we use some of it for,
12,000.
12,000,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
12,000 and,
So if we left this in there, we would have 22,000. And what is the plan for this fund, in our opinions?
Well, I
I'm
think
not
we
sure.
used it for Bennett's Cove, right?
Mike? Yeah, coastal access is easement purchases, capital structure, road path construction and repairs, facilitated public access to coastal waters and beaches.
So probably we should leave those alone.
I
Don't you
think so. I think it's especially with Indian Point.
Jen, do you have any comment on coastal access?
Cheryl, what do you mean by Indian Point?
Well, I mean, I know we have the retaining wall fund, but there could be some other things on that. And also Chandler's, there's, multiple coastal access points we might have to address.
So.
I would leave it.
And then the last one on this page at least is this is still counted, the Indian Point retaining wall.
Right,
We
we're
could
not
change.
putting
Are we
it,
gonna ask permission to change that?
yeah, we will, I think, right?
But we're not proposing anything for this upcoming year.
No,
Well, what I was gonna,
Go
are
ahead,
you gonna go through the Machias list?
I am.
Okay.
And the Indian Point account has a balance currently of $61,000 in it. Just so we know, and if we can enter into hopefully an agreement with Indian Island Corporation and the Ballard family, we may use some of that for a parking area, but I'm not sure that would pass the straight face test for
But
that.
don't we need to reword the
Yeah.
description at town meeting to
Yep.
accomplish that?
yeah,
Maybe,
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do have to, because it's really for the beach right now.
oh, I see, because you're saying the parking's up too high. for
Well,
the-
it was retaining wall before.
Retaining wall, what needs to change?
It says erosion control, replacement or installation of bulkhead.
I think the name of the account should be changed,
Yeah, we
first of
could
all.
just
And then
say,
the description could just be tweaked, right?
yeah, but we have to, personally, I think we should we should adopt them wholesale, the whole group, sort of, I don't know, we talked about this previously. Come up with the definitions, have the full table, make sure everybody's clear and just adopt them all and replace the old ones, because it will be confusing to people to just edit a couple, I think.
Yeah.
So that's how I would suggest we do it. They're in there anyway because they're in the warrant usually, right? The different
Yes,
categories.
the one that, so historically, if you look, what has happened is a graph has been put into the town warrant only with the ones that is being asked to
Right,
put money into it. And then either above and below would be kind of a sentence of, grand matching fund and then the description of it. So it would get adopted that way. But I do think that it would be helpful to have a list of all of them.
I think
so
for
that
people
can
to
see
see
it.
yeah, for us, I
When
mean,
do we do that work?
I will, I mean, Vika and I can put together a
I've
table.
been, working on it and, adding language in and, like I had mentioned it a little while ago, we've gone through the last couple of years of, town meetings and pulled out, I have a list of them here, all of the different motions that have been made that haven't necessarily been added.
Changed.
My calculation.
So,
So I updated this in the capital plan, so I can get that to Vika and then she can come up with a master list. But the problem is, you know, they don't all jive and we just need one list.
We want those, yeah.
And the list I've been working off of is this, capital plan draft that was created, so it
That's really
actually
where
has
we
a
need to
pretty
get
good
them.
list in it, and that's kind of what I've started updating.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Can we combine what is currently described as Indian Point retaining wall and what is currently described as coastal access fund? Yeah, just make it one
Yeah, that's-
coastal access fund.
But we have to do that at town meeting. We can't
Correct.
just do it.
We
Yeah,
do.
Explain why.
And,
So-
but change the language so that it includes things
Yeah.
like parking for access.
I think we should keep it as general as possible because that the.
What would the name of the new account be in your opinion, Bob?
It's already
Coastal
there.
access fund,
Coastal,
Oh, it would just do away with Indian Island.
just roll it all in coastal
So
access
you
fund.
would, there would be a language, you know, asking
you're right.
taxpayers
Yeah.
to move, to basically close out the Indian Island
Right.
retaining wall and
move it.
remainder to a so-and-so account.
And hopefully that won't cause.
And hopefully by the time we get to town meeting, we can have some more clarity about how we can work together to improve the parking situation.
Yeah, I think it would be good to make sure that happens, you know, there's some kind of knowledge before we try to do that at town
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I think the key is gonna be, you know, why are you doing it? What's the benefit? What's it gonna be called? And what would the description be? And what could it be used for? Those would be the three questions you're probably gonna get. So am I correct in saying that this page, and we left fire department reserve alone, by the way, at 80,000. Am I correct in saying we just trimmed $70,000?
I've got 80,
You get 80? I'm sorry.
I've got 50 coming out of paving,
Yeah,
10 coming out of, oh, fire department reserve, sorry. Scratch that. No, I've got 70, you're right.
okay. So,
So we're up 60.
yeah,
So it's,
I'll get there. So Bob, what was your goal for talking about the reserve Machias savings? That you're gonna talk about how the,
Reallocation. Are there any accounts in here that are sort of dead money that should be reallocated? To
Yeah.
any of the current additions as a way to reduce the overall expense? I
okay,
haven't looked at that. I'm just asking the question, whether that make any sense?
yeah,
well, there's a bunch of school funds in there, then, I think when I looked through this, I didn't see anything else, because other than the Indian Point one, and I think combining that is a good idea. So, but
Yeah, you're right. When I go through here quickly, I don't see any,
I did.
the school playground, what's that for?
Well, the school has money from, I think, Susan Wilson for the playground, so that's just their reserve fund. But I think what would also be nice is to kind of segregate the town and the school one so people understand, because I couldn't follow it. And it is in the capital. Capital plan has categories, which makes it a lot easier to understand.
so I already know the answer to this question, I think, but you weren't proposing to add to any of these.
No.
Okay,
Now, we've done that with the
Yeah.
conversation we just had, added and subtracted.
so I don't mean to bull rush the capital discussion, but how do you think we are with it as of right now?
I think the
Good,
changes we just made are all logical.
and it's a net 10 grand from where we started.
And
Right,
that 10 grand down from where we started. Yeah,
It is, because don't forget that line item 9010 goes from
Yeah.
20 to 80.
Yep, yes, we're
Okay.
at 10 down.
Item 910 is dredging, just so you know what we're talking about, Pam. I didn't mean to be so general for that statement. What would the will of the select board be at this point, and the town administrator, would you I've gone through the departmental page by page, the last couple of days, and I haven't found anything in there that I would suggest changing. We've been through them a number of times, but I'm interested to hear what others think.
I have a couple questions, which I, probably should have asked sooner, but when I went through it again, I was just looking at the expenditures for this year and the allocations for next year, and there's some pretty big differences, so I was just gonna ask you for why.
Sure. Do you want to identify the
Yeah, so-
departments yourself?
Yeah, so.
Go right ahead.
Go through the ones that, so actually, starting with the administration, I guess the one that came, so we have contract services, line 5,000. So that's Marjorie's, do I understand correctly, is that just Marjorie or is that other stuff?
No, so what we have paid for Marjorie was coming out of the wages, contracted services. And I had written them down.
How does that come out of wages? Is she being treated as an employee?
Yes,
How do we do that?
she's just a part-time employee. She was an employee and she remained, instead of going from a full-time, town, admin employee, we just allocated her.
So what do you have allocated for her for 24? Ballpark.
For 2024, there was $2,000 allocated for her help.
Not what I'm talking about then, okay. So contracted services, 5,000, what is that again? You probably told me this before.
Let me pull it out so I can tell you. I wrote it down. I knew this was gonna come up at one point.
And it's because, this year we've spent 3,000 to date and we've got 5,000 in there, so, and it's been up and down, so I didn't know what that was.
For the most part, the contracted services, most of it is our payroll company that we use.
Okay, yeah, you did that.
But there are a couple small other things in there.
Well, that's okay, Vika, it's an essential service, so it's not a big deal. But on the next line, on the audit, my concern there was, of course, we don't have much expenditures in 23, but so you have a slightly lower appropriation for 24, and you're comfortable with that? I guess what my question is, this year, we supposedly have a 21 and 22 audit happening for 18 grand.
So you're down $750 proposed for next year. You're okay with that much less?
Right, but I thought we would only have one audit, so wouldn't it be less?
This is the 2023 budget is to pay for the cost of the 2022 audit.
Not the 2021?
Correct. The 2021 audit, see the actual, it was $8,112 was expended. They're coming out next week and we're starting the 2022 and then they'll bill us. So the 2023 budget will then reflect under the 2022 actual.
Okay,
And
and you're sure that bill is gonna be under, it's gonna be less than what was budgeted?
I based these off of the numbers that they had given us. So when we first, agreed to use them and they gave us a contract for what the cost would be for 2021 and 2022. The 2024 estimate is based what they told us they are anticipated to charge us for 2023.
And that's just for 1 year?
Yes.
Okay. Fine. It seems like a lot for a single audit to me. That's fine. Then on planning, 1,700,
What page? are you
page
on?
5. Just, we had budgeted 5,650 for 2023 for consulting, and then we've lowered it to 3,000.
Correct, because what we did is we took the difference of that and put it into the legal budget.
Okay,
So then that way legal funds were in one sum.
Were you here for that discussion?
yeah, I probably was, it didn't click, I guess, for me. Sorry.
Yeah, so before you leave that, we left some 3,000 available for other consulting
Right.
besides legal. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
So then, on the electricity bills, I'm a little confused on, well, for example, on page 8. So, for example, just on line 2000, we have 4,000 budgeted for this year, $200 expended, 3,000 budgeted for next year. So what is the actual, because it shows up in multiple places.
Correct. The electrical is budgeted under each department based on the use. And the way that it works right now is we pay a small portion to CMP every month. But then quarterly, we get a bill from Revision Energy. When that bill arrives, we take the data that CMP provides us and we figure out what the cost is and per each department. And then that gets paid out. So the reason that this number is so low this year is because we've been back and forth with CMP because the piece of paper that they send us to show us the numbers that we need to then calculate the difference from revision, we haven't received. So there's 2 quarters that aren't accounted in that.
So
which is
that's
why the
not,
numbers-
so that's the problem, that's not.
Yes, correct.
Then on 2020, sort of the opposite issue, we budgeted 6,500, we're up to 7,588 for 2023, and then we've dropped it to 5,500. So why are we dropping the fuel oil budget when we're over the budget for 2023?
So with that, I have to look more into it. I don't remember and I don't have a good answer for you.
Okay, well, obviously my concern is that we just don't under budget because that would be a problem. And the same was true for communication. We budgeted 7,500, this year we're over, and then we're back to 75. So, I mean, I just was curious why.
With the communications, a lot of the radio repair and those kind of equipment go under that line item and.
When you say radio, you mean for the fire department?
Yes,
So that is,
because that's, we're on page
okay.
8, correct?
yeah, you're
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right, then just one question on the next page, on page 9, the code enforcement, there is no charge, there are no charges for travel related expenses for that position.
correct. What we cover is, we cover the cost of boat tickets and we get a flex parking pass that multiple people can use and code enforcement officer parks on that, and then we charge that under admin.
Okay, so it doesn't show up under his specific account.
Could I ask a question about that page before we leave it,
Yep.
Carol? So at the last meeting, we took the wages and we took it up to $40,000. And can you guys remind me what the thinking was? Are we thinking that in the future, this town has a goal of increasing that position as far as availability to the community and performance to the community?
Number of hours.
And we spent a fair amount of time calculating the hour. Bob was doing the numbers on that.
And did we have something to guess at, like an hourly rate?
Yeah.
Times X?
Yeah.
That's how we came up with
And
that?
it was like a little less than halftime or halftime position.
Right at it, yeah, right at it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Karen.
So then on page 12, I assume it's the same for electricity, same, fuel wasn't that much over, but diesel, for example, budgeted 8, we're up to 10, and we're not even done yet, and we budgeted 8 again. So it's just, I want to be sure that we're not short on those numbers.
With the diesel, it did go up a little bit. When we received, the diesel this year, the cost of it was a little bit higher, because of the, high costs last year. The one, thing about that is, when the school bus gets diesel or when the fire department gets diesel, we do journal entry to, one some lump bill gets paid out of public works, and then we do journal entries, so the number fluctuates a little bit, so, I think that number we're fine with, because there's money coming out of, fire department and, school to cover the costs of their expenses.
Would another way to say it be, that this is paying for filling up the tank, but we haven't yet been paid for them taking oil out of the tank?
Not all of it, but yes, that's correct.
Yeah, it's actually metered.
Yep.
And the school
Yeah.
bus and the fire department keeps track of what they,
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
overall on the fuel consumption, it seemed like we were under in some cases, and I just wanted to be sure. So as long as you're comfortable.
Yeah, and you know, I looked at the numbers and I looked at the, average use over the last couple of years. I think what really had a significant impact in the current budget going up is the really high gas prices that we saw, last year. I think that made a big impact, but with them having gone down, it seems like the numbers are gonna be okay.
yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
That was a real abnormality.
So on the solid waste budget, which is on page 14, we didn't really get into the weeds on this, but we just basically budgeted, so barging, we had a significant increase and we're over the estimated for this year and we're not done yet. So, and then we have budgeted essentially the same amount as last year. So, I guess we never really talked about this, so I feel like, is there a plan to sort of optimize the barging so that we can stay, I don't wanna be in the circumstance again where we're over budget.
From what I remember, I tried to the best of my abilities explain how I came up with the recommendation. The recommendation was to bump it up to, I believe 50. But if what I remember, there wasn't enough understanding to support that. One of the things that I sat down and I talked to the transfer station attendants, the two people that work down there, because they're seeing the concerns about how much, and we're hoping, what their recommendation is, as we heard before, is that, put something in the ordinance to make it so big projects have to get their own dumpsters. But
So I guess, in other words, to meet that budget, we probably need to take some action as a town to generate some, either minimize the trash or generate some revenue. So that's where we're at. So we can't just leave that and not do anything.
So before you leave that discussion, Vika, could I have you tell us one more time? Did you recommend going up from 43 to what?
50 was
I don't
that, I
Okay.
believe that was my,
Unfortunately, I just don't remember that. I believe you,
The only reason that I didn't insist on going up on any of these numbers is that the total
the total number.
operating number of the department has looked pretty
high.
good to me.
Right, because
overall.
the hauling is less than estimated by a fair amount. And so as you mentioned to us, it's a wash when it comes down to the bottom line.
Yes, because what we can't go over is 10% over the bottom number.
Right, but we're 30,000 under the hauling, which is the tipping cost, is that right?
What I'm not suggesting is that we might not go over if we leave it at 43,000 on the barging
We
line,
still might be
that we
okay.
might not go over that. I'm also not insinuating that we might not have some operational issues up there as far as how we're keeping up or not with the community volume. my opinion on the dumpsters or not for the contractor jobs on Shabig is, I understand that it probably, to pass the legal straight face test, could or should be in an ordinance, but I believe this select board has the authority to strongly suggest to our code enforcement officer presently that when someone pulls a permit to do a good sized job, that he should require, suggest, make them get their own dumpsters. It's not unreasonable. Go ahead, Bob.
I have a different suggestion.
Okay.
It just occurred to me. So the argument you and I have had extensively in the past is that, in my opinion, roll-offs encourage the lack of recycling. Everything goes in the roll-off, all the subs are everything in, no recycling happens. What if, instead of trying to force something that we really don't have legal authority to do by way of forcing people to have roll-offs, what if we increase dramatically the cost of using the construction roll-offs at the transfer station? The per truck fee, the per pickup, per yard fee, increase that dramatically, which would A, cover our costs, and B, encourage recycling.
So we have increased that.
We're still way below what other
Last
towns
year
charge,
it was increased from $35 to $75.
but we're still below, I believe, we've said in these meetings, we're below what other towns charge.
Go right ahead.
So when we did the transfer station, we did discuss about doing something possibly like that. And what we basically came up with was, if just Joe Smo wants to throw away something, now he's paying, you know, a ridiculous amount of money just because all the contractors brought up the price, drove up the price. We were just anticipating conflict about bringing it up too high initially.
And I wonder if maybe it's a building permit over a certain value sort of generates, because it's sort of asking people to do it is not very enforceable, but if we said your building permit's over, I don't know, 50,000 or 80, I don't know, some number,
Yeah.
100,000.
How do you enforce it?
Well, you tell people they have to get their own dumpster. That's how you do it.
Yeah,
And
and
I have
I,
no legal authority to do that.
Why not?
I
If we
think-
have, we can adopt
If
it
it's,
as.
if it's in our ordinance that states over X amount of square.
we could just
whatever,
call it for a select board policy,
I don't know.
but I don't care about that. I think there are also other, and I won't get bogged down,
Yeah.
but I think there are other things that are causing the barging. I think we're doing a pretty good job as a community recycling. I think the cardboard and the recycling is a good volume thing. Unfortunately, when they get full,
Yeah.
they need to be removed from the island. And I think that the solid municipal waste garbage is probably better than it used to be, certainly when we started the town as far as overall volume. But we only have 2 of those containers, and we have 2 recycling containers, and we have 1 or 2 cardboard now. So we've tried to improve things up there, but I just think the volume is
Yeah, for sure,
a lot more than we think it is.
especially for the construction stuff.
So it's not just the construction
No, it's
debris,
everything. It's everything.
but I've talked to Gail a few times, like, I know you have too, Ika, and it's hard for them to keep up with the construction debris.
I can believe it.
And now that we're on that subject, do we have a plan to consider another dumpster seasonally up there for construction debris outside? We used to do that. There's no room up there for it.
We, I would assume they'll probably come down to that. We haven't talked about ordering one just yet.
And would it even fit into our budget,
Yeah.
right? There'd be an extra cost from Triano and,
But it shouldn't be a cost. We should be charging at least what equals the cost of renting that and barging.
yeah, you're right.
And
We
in
should
terms
be
of
able-
Joe Schmo, I'm sorry, but we pay less for everything related to transfer station out here than surrounding communities do. So I understand
Yep.
change is hard for people, but it's trash. You gotta pay to get rid of it.
Well, the thing is, it's on our,
Fee schedule.
thank you. It's on our fee schedule. We can change that anytime we want to. We're trying to, the impact that we were doing all at once.
Yeah,
We didn't wanna triple it or quadruple it all at the same time, which we could change that fee anytime we want, so.
Yeah, and last year, all the
That's why
fees
we-
got adjusted and
Yeah.
changed, and they became
Yeah.
effective first, so.
And I don't know if anybody else, but I've taken some good lip for increasing those fees. That's fine.
The other place where it's worth discussing, and we dwelled into this last year, and I think Bo can probably speak to it, who got shut down fairly quickly, was as a municipality, this town is spending significant amount of money on the brush dump and the chipping. No one pays to dump in there. People come in, they can dump at their own free will, and it's costing us, just, $22,000 for the chipping. Forget about the week or two that our public works spends cleaning and, getting it prepared, and that's been a discussion over the last couple of years, but I think, that's an opportunity where the town doesn't charge anything, but it costs the town a lot of money to provide that service, so.
Sorry, we sabotaged your.
No, I'm all set. I mean, I guess my overall comment when
Okay.
I was at the school committee meeting, but when I actually then went through the budget again, I really had a hard time following what was what. And it's just a comment, it's not a complaint. I mean, like, I could see pre-K, K-2, 3-5 teacher salaries, but then there's other salaries that show up and I just can't correlate them with anything. It was just, it's very hard to follow like 8501 teacher salaries. Like, I don't know what that is. And I thought all the teacher salaries were here, so it's not a question for us, but I just think it's a little confusing in this format for me.
And this is, so looking at pages 22 through page 25, this is, and I know I've mentioned this before, being repetitive, but when the town was set up, the school was set up as one big department. And so this year, in having multiple conversations with Ian and Jeff, with having conversations with Trio and having talked to Marjorie, if you see on pages 26 through whatever, 38, 37, what I did is I created each new department for the different departments within the school. The reason that I didn't put once this budget is adopted, I will put the information in the accurate place, but for purpose of referencing and you being able to see previous years compared to the current year, I put the numbers in under the original format, but going forward,
Okay,
it's gonna be more broken down, so you'll have, department 8,001 will be office of the superintendent.
okay, so that is encouraging. So
So
for
that
example,
would be
yeah,
more broken down. The big problem with Trio is, when I created these new departments, it wasn't able to transition the history of that one big ongoing one. And so once this year is put into those categories, then next year's budget season will show, the 2023 actual, and then start building up history. And hopefully that can help keep it organized and better understanding, because that was definitely an issue that was raised last year. There's 4 pages of, school, and it's hard to tell what's what.
and what is the public gonna get for the budget? They're not, what are you typically giving the public prior to town meeting? Just the warrant articles, or are they gonna see a budget summary?
So I've been putting, on the town website under treasurer, I have fiscal year 24 budget, and so I've added most of these. And then, once the selectmen approve the budget, then I put it into a town warrant document and have the attorney look at it and make sure that it's accurate, and then that gets voted on and approved by the selectmen, and that's the document that,
So there is no kind of spreadsheet summary that the community gets. They could go and look at the history on the website. But it's basically the town warrant is kind of what they'll see. for
the
budget.
town warrant as far as what the anticipated expenses are, and then in terms of kind of the process that the board has taken, I just put these in one section.
Yeah, so I guess the only other thing I think the public should have is sort of this estimated tax mill rate change up or down. And so we already covered, because that part of that was sort of the education revenue was out of there in the tax commitment. So at some point, it doesn't have to, once the budget's finalized, it would be, I think, useful to kind of come up with that one-page estimate.
Can I go back to solid waste for a moment?
Oh, sorry.
Are we gonna leave the barging at 43,000? Is that where we ended up? Line
Yes.
5020?
I think with it sounds like the hauling is probably maybe an overestimate. I mean, I guess that was the question I had for Vika, are those numbers, are you comfortable with those numbers for 2024?
The barging one does make me a little nervous, just because of the increase in barging and, all of the different projects that are going on. So I would feel a little bit more comfortable, bringing that up a little bit, but
Right, and it's its own department, so it's not that easy to monkey around, so. Right,
3,200 is its own department.
right.
So
I would bump barging up to 46 or 47,000.
I would agree, I'd rather have a buffer, and
Which one?
46
6.
is an extra 3, yeah, I'm good with that. I think we should increase it a little bit,
That's my suggestion. Anybody disagree, agree?
I have no, I'd
We're
go
over,
to 50.
well, we will be over.
Okay, are you proposing
I'm
50?
proposing 50.
Okay, I'm proposing 46. How about you
46.
three?
46.
Jen?
50.
Okay, where are you at?
I'm at 46, but we can split the difference and make it.
Let's go 47.
Yeah, let's get
How's that, Bob?
That's not splitting the difference.
No, it's not, but I
Your
think,
calculator's broken.
I think it's gonna be fine. And before we leave this without getting into too much, I still believe we're going to have to form yet another small group and take a very hard look at how we're running that system now, what other towns are doing, what should we be trying to do, who can help us with that if needed, and then the brush dump becomes another complicated, scenario, which we all know, right?
We already have a committee.
Oh, we made the committee.
Yeah.
Who is it again?
Well, we don't
Nobody.
have anybody, but a couple of months ago, the selectmen adopted it.
What did we call it?
Solid waste?
It was
Solid
a
waste.
solid
Solid waste
waste,
group?
and there was,
Okay, sorry, I
tasks,
forgot.
Yeah.
and no one's joined it.
Just very quickly, I don't know if there's much to this, but there's an individual on the island right now that sawed that lumber over at, on Firehouse Road for, Dale and Lisa. And I was looking at that pile of wood thinking,
I know,
geez,
I
there's a
know.
lot of good wood there. I'm not suggesting it's to solve to this $22,000 budget item, but I'm wondering if something like that might be worth a discussion at some point, if nothing else.
We did try one year hauling it, having it hauled off. And the cost of the barging wasn't
We never
good.
did talk to Long Island about solid waste, did we?
We haven't talked to them
That
yet.
would be good to talk to them.
And then
Tomorrow.
the wood chip problem is probably something we've only glanced at, right, Bob?
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't combust,
What, then what?
catch on fire.
Okay, Karen, did you have more budget?
No, those
pages?
are all my questions. I didn't mean to take too much time.
Did you have department budget?
I did not, no.
I,
Go ahead.
So just to jump back to the fire departments.
Okay.
We were talking about the radios.
Yeah.
What
So
page are you on?
I'm on
Page 8.
39.
Oh,
39. Oh, in nine.
page what?
39.
Are you going back to capital? Sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
Department 9,000, 90, 25 to 80,000.
Yep,
So to clarify, it was 48,000 and some change for the radios,
Yeah.
so 50,000, which leaves a 30,000
Yeah.
for fire truck, I assume, future fire truck. Do we want to shave that a little or no?
Well, Mark asked that, right?
I don't, I'm sorry.
I don't want to go.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I missed your question.
Do we want to shave any of that off the future fire truck? I almost think that that is something you could, because fire trucks are one of those things that there should be grant opportunities out there for those things.
It's great opportunities for radios. A bunch of towns got them, little tiny towns.
So Janet, are you suggesting reducing the 2024 80,000? Is that what you're suggesting?
To 70,000.
Okay. Bob?
No.
Bob?
Yeah.
Carol?
No,
And what's your thinking, Jen?
The 50,000 for the radios and 20,000 into the fire truck reserve instead of 30,000. We put
That was-
20,000 in last year.
That was my initial thinking, and I did not check in with Ralph. I'm sure the answer would have been predictable without being presumptuous, but I did not check in with him. That was exactly my thinking in the beginning.
And I'm only saying that because that's 20,000 is what we put in last year.
Yeah. I think it's adequate at 70. It covers the radio, still puts 20 towards the new truck. So, so you're a yes, 70, I'm a yes, you're a no,
it's fine. Majority
and
wins.
you're what?
Yes.
70.
So I think we're gonna knock that one down to 70 for now. Probably take the heat next week. But anyway, thank you for that, Jen. Go right ahead.
So page 10. I'm just gonna revisit 2,500. Harbor Master, and I'm just gonna remind everybody one last time that even though we are having discussions with Long Island, that if you look at other communities our size, nobody pays that much for a Harbor Master. And my suggestion is to drop it to 14,000. And we work with it.
So you're talking 10 wages part-time?
Yep.
Okay. Bo,
No.
Bob, Carol,
No, I guess I do have a question though. Didn't we separate out the positions?
No, we created two jobs, or we,
So shouldn't they show, it shows as harbor master and shellfish. But it's just two different positions, is that right?
it's one department, that doesn't, a department can have more than one employee.
Okay. But I don't remember how it's differentiated. It was like 6 for the shellfish.
There's hours associated with the job description.
Okay, whatever. I don't want to derail this, but yeah, I'm fine with it the way it is.
so, yeah, I can't change it right now, Jen. I understand your concerns, and I've looked at, I thought about, the comparisons to other towns, and we are. We do appear to be paying a lot more than some other towns. But I'd like to keep it where it is for now. See if any of these discussions with Long Island goes anywhere, and then evaluate how the positions working for the community more going forward, and reevaluate it as needed.
I guess my opinion on it is a mess down at the school here. And I think Mark, you said a while back that just having a presence down there may help, and I tend to agree with that. So I think you know, someday, if the stone pier was in a form that was more functional, we could probably cut back.
Yeah. Jen, go ahead.
Jen's done.
Nope, I got one more.
Go ahead, Jen.
Now, keep in mind, I'm not trying to be mean, and I'm just trying to look at the bottom line of everything and
Yeah.
get as much out as we can. Page 16, 4,600 in contributions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I still have a problem with this kind of run on these organizations, you know, wanting more every year. I understand their reasoning behind it, but I'm also just, like I said, trying to not have everybody's taxes go up. So I'm proposing that for 3151 community center, it be at 35,000. And then I would propose that the 3167, the rec center be at 35,000. And that would drop the overall contribution amount to 133,000.
Okay, let's start with the 3151 community center. You're recommending going down from 38,500 to, what was it?
3,500. I mean, sorry, 35,000.
35,000. Bo,
I'm a no.
Bob,
I don't think they asked for that increase.
Yeah, they did.
They did ask, I knew there was one where we gave an increase without them asking. They got me.
the comments.
I'm trying to remember what their logic was for their increase.
Increase energy costs, but then in the process of upgrading, so they expect this to be, is it mostly electricity and they expect it to decrease over time because they're putting in solar. So it was really the increased electrical cost. Wait,
They've held steady at 34,500. The 2022 actual is an abnormality of the COVID.
No, and see how underneath
Oh.
under miscellaneous expenses, they got paid out, it just wasn't,
Oh, sorry. I thought it's because we didn't.
it was, no, it's that you add that miscellaneous expenses below it, that number.
Oh,
it
I'm
just
sorry. I was
wasn't
thinking about the
allocated properly.
contribution to the hall. $4,000. So, I'm sorry, Bob, did you say where you are? Carol?
I want to leave it the way it is.
Yeah, and I'm good where it is too. So Jen, I think your next one was 3167 Shebig Rec Center. I think you said from 59,000 to 35?
Yep.
35,000 Rec Center.
I'm a no.
Bob,
No,
Carol,
Yeah, I could do that.
I'm not gonna be able to go on with that without a discussion with the Rec Center myself.
And that brings up another thing though, that I just remembered. Is that there is a memorandum of understanding for the kids' place contribution that's never really been followed. Which includes all kinds of reporting to the board. So-
That is accurate.
So if you don't mind me jumping in here, I think if we're gonna appropriate any money for the kids' place, we need to make sure that we are, enforcing is the wrong word, but, requiring the rec center to operate under that MOU. I guess, where I see this situation at, I think we do need to sit down with the board and kind of talk it through. It's a lot of money.
I would agree with that. I think a workshop with them is probably warranted, or a smaller group and then a bigger discussion or something like that. But anyway, I'm sorry, Jim, I think three of us are not
That's fine.
in favor. Did you have other departments?
Those are the only ones that I could find to.
Bob, did you have any departmental question? Go right ahead.
I'm sorry, I did have one department thing.
Okay.
Hey, what?
COLA.
Page what?
They're in page, one,
It's everywhere.
page, it's in general. I'm in favor to leave it at 5%. We took the $10,000 out of, the bonus, and it's a minor increase, to the budget as far as wages.
Okay,
So this has been an ongoing one that we've been back and forth,
I
kind
understand.
of dodging.
I've been at 3%. I'm still there. Go ahead, Bob.
What's the total impact of going from, so 5% is what we have in the number now?
Yeah.
In the budget now? If we went to 3, what's the total change?
So the wages increase from last year is 13,574. That's just the wages increase from last year.
I'm asking for everywhere in the
But,
budget.
no, I understand, but that's everywhere in the,
So you mean total wages, the difference with the 5% increase?
from
is-
last year's wages
Is 13,000.
is 13,000 something. So for me, that's minor compared to
But
what
it's-
I know it's not just COLA in there because there's some increases because of their steps and all that. So there's other minor stuff.
Are you talking about the school board too, or?
I just wanted to say, I understand what you're asking.
So that's just the town though, not the school?
Correct, just the town.
But if you add all the wages up that we're paying out, it's darn near $400,000, isn't it?
Wages for everybody, yes.
So
The-
5% of that would be 20 grand and 3% would be 12 grand. Right?
Right.
The difference, so the 5% recommendation, if the same exact employees that are, went to 3%, the difference would be $10,936. Savings from 3% to 5%,
How much?
$10,936.
Yeah, so in other words, the impact of the budget would be roughly probably 19,000 on 5%, 11,000, I think is what she just said on 3%.
Wait, can you repeat that again? Sorry, I didn't follow that.
Well, I think 5% would be about 19 or 20,000 and 3% would be 11, 12,000. Then we just said,
Well, so it's 5%, if you did 3%, the savings would be $10,936.
oh, sorry, didn't follow you.
So can I ask a question on that? How do you get $10,000 out of that?
Yeah.
Because what I did is I went through and I put in 3% COLA increase for the employees and then 5% and took the difference, because the employees are all hourly, and so it's based on, their 5% looks higher than other, and so that's,
Okay, so the COLA affects just their wages? Does it
yes.
affect any other line item?
No,
Well,
So why do we have a 13,000? So 2% would just be through $3,500?
not
Because from this, I added the difference between last year's wages that we budgeted and then this year's wages that we're potentially budgeting. And the difference between both of those is 13,574. Unless I missed something somewhere.
So that's probably not just COLA. The difference,
No, I understand that, but if we bring it down to, if we bring it down to 3%, why is it a difference of $10,000? If currently at 5%, it's only $13,000 raise from last year.
I don't think 5% is only $13,000 raise from last year.
That's what I'm looking at, like the numbers.
Not
That's all I'm curious.
50%.
and I'll give you
I
the,
understand, it doesn't make,
I'm not looking, well, I didn't do the calculations, last year to this year. Because I just did it, you know, if you were to look at the current wages, what would the difference be to the cost with 3% and 5%? I would have to take your calculations and plug them into these equations to be able to have a better answer.
I'll give you my quick rationale of why I'm at 3%. And I'm not trying to be mean spirited about it. But we've asked the taxpayers to absorb a 12% increase in health insurance. Now, I realize that an individual pays 10% of that, so they're gonna have an increase in that 10% area as well. And the family plan is 80% town and 20% family. But asking the taxpayers to absorb a 12% increase on the benefits and then asking them to then dish out another 5% on top of that, to me, it's just a little bit rich for the way I look at things. That's my rationale. Thank you. Go ahead.
So I did check today and the annual, so as of March of 2023, the annual consumer price index increase is 4.3% for New England. So, you know, it's come down a fair amount as you average it out over the year. So I personally, I would propose 4%. I think the town of Hartsville did 4%. I noticed their health insurance costs went up, for example, 6%. So significantly lower health insurance increase, but I would be comfortable with 4%
Okay,
as a compromise.
Jen?
I look at it as, first of all, increases in health insurance. It's not the employee's fault. It's just the way it is across the board and everybody, you know, has to absorb that somehow. And these are the town's employees. And how else do we show them our appreciation and how much they mean to us as what they do than by giving them, you know, a 5% increase? I think 5% is what they asked for. It's what Vika proposed, and I support that.
Okay, thank you. Bob, go ahead.
I can't go 5. I'll go 4 as a compliment.
Okay, so we have right now 2 at 5 and 2 at 4 and 1 at 3. I'll go to 4. Go right ahead.
I agree with Jen, that the 5% is a very, very good investment. And I would recommend, if the savings are really significant, that they be taken out of something that is less significant right in this very moment. And I think that they can be. So cut the fire truck. If you really want to keep the bottom line, cut the fire truck by the amount of the COLA to the employees.
Thank you, Pam. You still at 4? You still at 5, Jen?
I'm still at 5, and I just want to add that we did take away the bonus structure, and I think that's significant enough.
Carol?
4.
I'm still at 5, and then you talk about the health insurance went up, but other line items in that, in the 7,500 went down,
What page?
page 21.
Yeah.
So
but
not only do we take the 10,000 out of there, the line item 3060, you know, went down 6,000,
that's not employee related.
or not 6,000, 4,000. I know, but it's all,
Benefits?
yeah.
I-
The liability insurance, that went down. You know, they pretty much all, I don't know. It's a small, to me, it's a small amount to say thank you.
But you know, it's not equally distributed. It's dependent on people's salaries. So people with lower salaries get less benefit. That doesn't seem particularly fair to me.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about a huge amount of money here, so,
Yeah.
you know, I think we should wrap it up. I think I think 4% is a good compromise from 5 to 3. I know a couple of businesses in town that only gave 3, and I know a couple that gave 4, and I know one that gave 5. But it doesn't mean we have to do it that way. I think 4% is a fair compromise, just a little less than what was proposed. And we haven't asked any more contributions or co-pays on our insurance. We haven't shopped around trying to save money and cheaped out on the coverage. So, we've kept that good. And there is a little bit of an increase. When you increase wages for employees, there is increases to FICA withholdings. There is potential increases to workman's comp contributions, which I believe is at 75% of wages last time I checked. There could be increases to matching any retirement payments at only 4 or 5%, but so there are some costs that don't show up. They're not big costs, but they are costs in there nonetheless. So are we gonna leave this discussion at 4%, or does anybody else have any else to say or ask?
No,
Go
this
ahead.
discussion.
I just have a question, and maybe Vega knows the answer. Where does the school budget incorporate a COLA increase currently as it's in the budget?
I'm
Yes.
not sure. I mean, right now, what they have in their budget is, I believe it's 3 or 4%, that they're recommending for their employees. I think it's 4%. So that's already in it. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so what I'm asking is, I think typically the school tries to align with the town. So, and I didn't know if they've already incorporated some percentage increase in their salaries, and it sounds like.
I talked to them, they did,
Yes.
but they were still waiting to
So what-
finalize that number until.
What
we
number
finalize
did they use?
They used 4, but then when the school found out that the town, I was recommending 5, they were willing to bring that, bring it up to 5 as a recommendation.
Yeah, I talked to one school board member this morning and another school board member a day or 2 ago, and it sounded like they were at around 4%. Some of the contractual negotiated 3-year people are actually gonna be at 5.2% or something with union negotiations, so that's different. But it sounded like they were around 4%. They were waiting to see what we did. They were wondering if we were gonna stay at 5 or go down to 3 or just go to 4, and so here we are. So I think we're at 4% unless there's other questions or discussion.
I have
Go
one
ahead.
question. So Carol, thank you for pointing that out, because I think that is significant,
What's that?
that it's not across the board, it's not 5%, it's 5% of the salary. My question, maybe I should have asked earlier, with Marjorie being an employee rather than a contractor. There are several questions that I have about that, but would an increase, a COLA increase apply to Marjorie as, someone who's an occasional employee? So how can that
I would assume so.
possibly be? How could it not apply to her if she's an employee?
Because the current, the employee, these are for, she gave us a number that she was willing to come out and help at. And so that's what we pay her as an hourly rate. She's not somebody that is, as an employee, that would go under this. This is typically our, regular bi-weekly paid employees that this would. So this doesn't qualify to, the per diem fire department.
So it's regular full-time or part-time employees, like long-term.
Correct.
Right.
Thank you for reminding us, by the way, to settle this, at least for now. Go ahead.
And I guess the way I see it is, not knowing what the bottom line is for this budget, it's a little hard for me to go any to be any more, to go higher. I really feel like we need to know what it means for the taxpayer, and I feel like I don't have a good handle on that.
Okay, and we have one more thing that we're going to be discussing at some point, and that is, do we want to recommend to the voters to ask for an amount of money to be taken out of undesignated fund balance to help with this budget? In other words, do we want to ask them for $70,000, $80,000, $100,000? I'm just using those numbers. We've done that. Herb and I were very adamant when he was on the board that we made it very clear to the public that we were doing that, why we were doing that, and that it was because the budget spending usually increased around 2.5% per year.
Right,
But what you're saying is that would be offset by taking unspent monies from the prior year.
and I.
So we don't know what those are because we don't have it on.
We don't know what that is, but
We should have.
we
an
can
estimate.
probably get an estimate like we did with Marjorie's help from last year of an amount that
And
she thinks would be
we are
prudent.
starting, the audit process now, so I think we'll be able to be, because it was late, towards the finalizing of, the budget before it was approved, that we were able to get the undesignated funds last year, so it was
Yeah.
fairly late into the season of these now.
So
Are
there-
those undesignated funds from 23 or 22?
23, from 22.
from 22 to 23, yeah.
Okay.
It's, yeah, it's monies that weren't
So-
spent in 22 that would be.
The reason I'm bringing this up is not so we spend more because we think we can ask for another $120,000. That's not my point. My point is, I think it may be prudent for us to consider asking for an amount of money from the voters from last year's leftover undesignated funds, because we are, even though we're trying to budget, in my opinion, fairly well, and trying to budget and plan fairly well for capital planning and spending, costs are not going down. And then the other wild card will be Jackie's help of putting a final value on the town. And that usually doesn't go down historically.
I have a question. Those undesignated funds. We don't say anything to the taxpayers. Where's that money go?
Undesignated
Rolls
funds.
right into the next budget cycle.
It's like in your bank account. That's how
So
I
you
think.
can't spend it because it's not in the budget, but it's in your bank account.
You can't spend it without, you
We're
can't
not-
reassign it without permission from the voter.
But it's still in the bank account. We
Yeah.
collected the
Yeah.
revenues.
And so last year, the school put 125 towards their budget, 125,000.
And I can't remember what we did, 100 or 100,
It doesn't have anything in there.
we got
It's
100,000.
in here.
Oh, it is? I must have missed it.
It's in, where is it?
So Carol's absolutely right. We need to try to get to that one-page tax calculation.
Page 41,
395.
line 395, 175 is what we did last year. I understand what you're saying, but we've always tried to strive to try to get it, and for some reason, we've never been successful. We've gotten close one year, where we only asked for like 100 and
okay.
something one year.
So you're saying we've been trying to budget without needing any extra money?
We did.
It's not
I
extra money.
wished we had, yeah.
Right.
It's money that's in the checkbook.
Right.
We'd be fiscally irresponsible to not apply it to the next year's budget as a way to pull taxes down.
Well, there's a maximum we can have. What is
Which
it,
is-
3% or something of our
There is
total?
a minimum and a maximum, and I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's in, it's a warrant article that explains those details.
We have one
But
of
for the
those.
purpose of this discussion, am I correct in assuming it's just gonna sit in the checkbook if we don't ask for the permission to spend.
What sometimes people do is they'll take those funds and distribute them into capital accounts later
Which is
on.
what the school did, is they took a portion and put it into the transportation.
If we knew the numbers in more real time, we could do that, but
And if we knew the number tonight, maybe 5% wouldn't have been as big of an issue. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make light of the conversation that we just had, but it's hard not knowing all of the final numbers, you know, but we'll get there. We need to get to that tax calculation sheet, which shows all of this breakdown and then has a projected mill rate. That's Carol's point. Taxpayers, they want to know, what's my tax bill gonna be? What's the tax rate gonna be? They don't care about the stone wharf ramps or, go ahead.
So every year we try to strive to get our budget close to zero,
you mean your net increase?
the net increase to zero. And then using our capital, being like, we want to propose, we take $100,000 out of there because we have most years on dredging. So, you know, we're recommending that we put it into our capital budget or something. Just to give them an idea of what our plan is about it. So that way, we planned everything was pretty much zero, but we were $100,000 up because we decided to put money into that line item. So, and then that's why we're recommending to the town that we take out $100,000 out of undesignated funds.
But I do believe it would be beneficial to get back to that capital plan document with an appointed 3-member group in this town, and their only function is the budget and the finances to get to that budget, along with the input from the town administrator and her meetings with her departments and this body.
Yeah.
And that would take, and in that way, it would take the stress and the focus off this body, so we could focus on everyday business and helping to move things along in the town and manage it.
But I mean, for example, on the school committee, which is the only thing I've had experience with, oftentimes we'd have over $100,000 in undesignated funds, and almost every year we would take a portion of those, not the full amount, and apply those to the next year's budget to reduce the overall cost to the taxpayer. But we would keep some in the bank, so to speak, for unanticipated expenditures. So you can keep a little kitty that is, you know, in case something happens and you need some money, but there's a limit to how much you can keep in that account. 3% for school, but I think the town has more latitude, which makes sense.
We have,
If you keep money in the undesignated funds, then how do you tap those?
You have to have a town meeting.
Okay, got it. Okay, now.
Let's say the school burned down and you needed some money to like bring in some portables. That's what you do.
we have
Until you
an,
got your insurance.
we have an actual policy on the town side.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I don't think anybody pays attention.
We have an actual policy, Vika, on the town side for the undesignated fund balance. And I think that it can't, we don't ever want it to get lower than 9%
That's why we need the
and
audit.
higher than
It was 12.
14% or 12%.
Wow, that's high. Yeah, we were at 3, we couldn't go over 3.
Do you remember that, Vika?
No, I don't remember it right off the top of my head. That's
Well,
what I'm
I know what
trying
you're
to
saying.
remember.
I can't
Jay
remember.
Corson, do you remember it?
Say it again.
We have a policy on the town side for the undesignated fund balance, and we don't ever want to see it get below, I'm going to say, 9% of the total budgeted amount, or higher than, I'm gonna say 14%, because I think Jay Corson and Herb could probably answer it if I called them right now,
Well, we have good,
maybe.
what we have good for us is in a few years, we'll have some money that, you know, we'll stop paying. There's a certain, there's Cumberland that will stop paying, and then
Yeah,
there's another
we
one.
just have the Stone Pier, the
So
fire
that
department.
that will free up some money so that it can be reapplied somewhere else.
Yeah, we'll have
you
to
know,
pay.
it
We'll
was-
get free money for them.
Yeah.
So, can I take another recommendation On,
Gonna cost anything?
no.
Okay.
Page 39, once again, the stone wharf, 9015. Since you don't have, I hate taking money out of that line, just because I want to move stuff along, but you gotta bring that number down.
What
And
number?
since the total number.
The 9015?
for the budget, so I would recommend we bring that down to 50
From 100?
from 100.
Okay,
We don't have a plan.
Bob,
We have an idea of what we're gonna do. Once again, we're just shooting it out there.
Okay.
I understand.
are you a no?
I'm a no.
Jen,
I don't know.
Carol? Yeah, I can't do it only because it doesn't matter now, we're all voted 3-1.
Yeah,
Three to two or 4-1. I can't do it because I think we're going to do something down there. I think we're going to do something with that road. I'm hoping that piece of property is involved with the golf course, so on and so forth. And I think we're going to need a bunch more money for even the engineering final
Right,
design.
so we need to get to a 30% design in order to even start looking for money. And so we need several $100,000 to do that. There's no, as far as I know, it's not gonna be an easy lift to find a grant to do the design. After we have that, then we could go out.
Yeah,
But we're talking 10 to 18 million was the estimate. I mean, so
Yeah.
this is peanuts.
so it's a good effort, but you gotta, oh, God, did you have anything else?
Nope.
Vicki, did you have anything? Anything from anybody else? Nothing from the public?
Just that the undesignated fund balance policy is long, so it's probably something to look into.
I'm sure,
Somebody
yeah.
put some effort into this.
Yeah,
Probably her.
The reason I brought it up is that I think it has a good intention, and I haven't, you know,
but I think it's in state law, I
yeah.
think the state requires the ranges.
The intention is to not let it get too low because things come up, like you said. And school's probably different than town side, but on the town side, don't let it get too high because why are you overtaxing
Right, so
people?
that's part of it is that you don't
Yeah.
over appropriate. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that the contingency amount is 14,000. And I'm not suggesting we change anything now, but I think it's been 14,000 for the town budget for a while. And meanwhile, our budget for, total amount has gone up a lot. And maybe we should think of the contingency more as a percentage rather than a fixed amount.
Yeah, we had it at 16 a couple of years ago.
So I kind of feel like that's on the low side.
How is a contingency different than the undesignated fund balance?
It's defined right in the policy.
So a contingency is budgeted with the full budget
So you
and
can spend that without going to town meeting.
correct.
Yes, we
So
are.
We can spend it.
So the
We-
undesignated fund balance is double top secret contingency fee that you need permission from mom and dad to spend.
Well,
Yes.
it's money that's left over that we can't just go spend without, it's the community's money. So
It's
we
the
can't
community's money,
spend
but we
it.
don't want to let it get too big, but we don't want to let it get too small.
Right, but it's also, we can't spend it without permission because we've essentially over appropriated for the town
I
budget.
understand.
But I do think we would benefit from a slightly larger, I mean, we're at a $3.5 million budget. $14,000 is not a lot for that large a budget. If we don't spend it, great, but we can't come up with it if it's not appropriated. And I'm not suggesting we make that change this year, it's just food for thought.
Have we almost spent? How much?
I know, on the legal.
The legal fees, that's where we're spending legal fees out of it now, correct?
Yeah, we're gonna burn through that.
Yeah, it was only like $5,000 left.
There's only 5 or 6 grand left in the contingency from 14.
That might be
Yeah,
another reason.
I mean,
to
once the
increase
next
that.
bill comes out. then
Well, I mean, we
they'll
can even do it
follow.
this year if we want. I'm just thinking it's been the same amount for a long time and the budget's been climbing.
Okay, so before we leave this meeting tonight, I'd like the board, the select board, and the town administrator's opinion on what the discussion will be about the budget next week. Just here it is. This is pretty much it. Are you going to try to get some numbers from Jackie? And when are we striving to have that one-page formulation sheet.
So the one page, what I'm hoping for is that I can get the information from the school, hopefully tomorrow, so then I can, update that information. And then if I have, the school aid, I have a spreadsheet, that, you input those numbers in. And so I can, do it and have Jackie double check it, and then would be able to have that for next week. And then hopefully no other changes, major changes get changed to the budget after next week, because what I'm planning on is, after next week's meeting, making whatever the changes and then sending it to the town attorney
Yeah, well, hopefully.
And,
the following week.
and will it just be a discussion between you and Marjorie about having her help us take a experienced guess at what we might be able to ask the town meeting for out of the undesignated fund balance?
So what I was hoping for is, next on Tuesday to, have the auditors start with the information that they need. And then also contact Marjorie to see, she had given me description and information about how she figured that out. So
Okay.
I was gonna play with the numbers and then see what the auditors had, to work with, and then have her verify to see whether I did it right or whether she can,
For
Take a look at it.
2022,
yes.
yeah. So,
Because we will need to know if we're going to have that warrant article. It needs to be its own warrant article to ask the taxpayers to consider allowing the select board to move
I know the
X
school
amount from
is
undesignated
not
fund
going to
balance.
school is
to-
not, right, but what, do you know what's in the undesignated fund right now? Ballpark, I mean, just round numbers.
I believe last year, before the votes, it was about
500,000.
100,000. But there was a huge, like you said, there's a huge chunk of it that you just can't.
And he
touch.
reminded me that we took, what, 175?
Yeah, well, good,
So,
seems reasonable.
it has to have 16% of the operating budget in undesignated. fund
Maximum.
balance.
Maximum.
No, maximum. Minimum is 16%. You can't go below 16% in that fund. 25% is the amount that can be.
That doesn't sound right.
Well, I think she's right. And again, not being, and not being that savvy with the finance part of it
It's not in
sometimes.
the capital plan, Vika? I thought it was.
It's, so it's its own policy on the website and the capital.
Thank you for that
plan,
reminder, Pam, and finding that for us.
I was looking
Is
at.
that the operating budget, just on the expense side, or is that net of revenue?
The undesignated fund balance will be greater than 16%, but less than 25% of the operating budget as defined in this policy. An operating budget has a strict definition above.
Yeah, so that must be the town side only.
It is.
Yeah.
Says town of Shadid, it doesn't reference the school at all.
It is, it's town side only, it would not include at that point of time, it would have been about a $1.1 million
That
school
seems high. So
budget.
the school can only go to 3%. I guess that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, there's some.
The school can only go to 3%, and we
Yeah.
went over sometimes, but the police didn't come after us, but we definitely didn't get anywhere near 10.
So anyway, whether that is still a good policy, and that might be another discussion if we
Right, the
decide.
finance
Yeah.
committee.
Town hall.
Gotcha.
Are we good for tonight?
Yeah.
Take over your meeting.
Good. No, you're fine. Just one thing, you got a discussion about Fowler, wanted to see about executive session. Like to put it on the next meeting that we have next Wednesday, unless there's any. So do we invite the code officer to this,
I don't think
or the lawyer? We need to get one of them in there.
Really?
Don't we just have